Review and consider approval of resolution number 3720, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Coalinga ordering an election on measure, there's nothing there, anyhow, regarding term limits, requesting county elections to conduct the election, and requesting consolidation of the election. City Attorney.
It's resolution 3720.
Thank you. Oh, well, on measure, though.
And Assistant City Attorney Mary Lerner is going to.
Right. So with respect to the measure language, the county clerk actually fills that in.
Oh, okie dokie.
And that's why it's left blank. So on June 23rd, the City Council directed city staff to bring back the matter of term limits. So what you have before you tonight is resolution number 3720. And it's the resolution provides that a measure be placed on the ballot regarding the adoption of term limits. Specifically, it states, shall an ordinance establishing term limits for Coalinga City Council members be adopted? There are several examples of term limit related ballot language that various cities are doing in California that are in the staff report. It's also recommended, if the council moves forward with this, that they consider whether any term limits would apply prospectively, so how they apply. And so we need direction as far as whether you're going to adopt the ordinance as is, or the resolution as is, or direct city staff to revise the language, or the city council will continue with no term limits. Do you have any questions?
Well, before we start talking about that, some of the examples I saw, or all of them, I believe, it was three terms, and then a full term off. And what I had originally suggested was 2 full terms with a 2-year breathing period.
Okay.
And so I don't know how the council wants to handle that, but that was the original idea. So anyhow, council.
I would be okay with exactly that. What the 2 terms and then 2 years off, and I think that that should. What exactly did you mean when you said how would it start or how would it?
Well, it's whether any term limits would apply prospectively, meaning that the council terms in progress or completed before the effective date of the ordinance would not count toward the enacted term limit. That's just a consideration of how you would apply it if it were.
So we can
passed.
apply it now, or we can apply it later.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and that would all be outlined for the measure.
Okay, just making sure.
In other words, it would, if it was, let's say it goes on the ballot. Let's say the community says, okay, we want to do term limits. And they vote yes on the idea of doing term limits. When does that become effective?
The day after the election.
It becomes effective that day. So, okay, so
Approved.
So let's say Mr. Keel and I, as an example, are up for election, and he's obviously stated he's not going to run for election. And me, I have no clue what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm doing from one day to the next. But anyway, let's say I chose to run for election, or Mr. Keel chose to run for election. We get elected. Let's say we win the election. So does that hinder us from becoming on the council, or what? How does that work?
Well, it would depend on what the council wants to do with the ordinance and the measure and how you want it applied.
Yeah, I would think you would not, anybody who's elected at the same election, it would not apply. It would have to start the next term.
The next term.
To do it sooner.
So if that person got elected, then they would serve another 4 years, and then it would become effective after that.
Correct, and that's the determination of how it would
Okay.
apply.
The only reason I'm asking, I just need a clarification, because I've had a lot of people ask me about it, and I
Okay.
said, I have no idea because we haven't discussed it. So I just want a clarification.
Okay.
And any ballot measure, of course, will spell it out precisely, so the public will see, they'll see a little bit more than what's in this sample here. They'll see exactly what the term limits would be.
Well, that's why we're talking about it. I want to know before we have to wait and see.
Right. No, I mean, but the sample language just says term limits, doesn't say how you would do it. So the actual language would go into, the ballot would say 2 4-year terms, 2-year break, would actually say that. It wouldn't just say term limits.
Okay.
So if the council decides that tonight, if the council says, well, if you've already served 2 terms and we're going to put this in place, and we decide that your last 2 terms count, does that then mean that, say, Mr. Lander, how he's asking, wouldn't even have a reason to run?
Well, I think
let's get to the gist.
You want to clarify that.
Yeah,
but
that's what I want to know.
I don't think it could apply if you couldn't. It wouldn't be in effect until you ran again, and you're already running. So I don't think it'd be reasonable to.
So it won't be effective unless it was passed
Right. It's going to be the people in the middle
Okay,
of the
so
terms.
it wouldn't be in effect till the next term. Okay,
So
gotcha.
what I'd like to do is I'd like to, if just an idea thrown out there, that we take one term into consideration that the people have right now, which would leave leadway for the second term, which would guarantee that we could still have 2 terms. So like if Mr. Landers and Mr. Keel, whatever they would decide to do, that wouldn't hinder them on the next time. But then it would take 1 term from now that we're doing, and then the next election would be 1 term, and then that would be a 2-year breather.
So that's possible.
Yes, and I think that's one of the proposals, yeah.
Okay.
And so basically, you know, of course, just for the audience's benefit, you know, the council is just simply wanting to put this on the ballot. But it is you, the voter, who will make the decision what you want. You can say, well, we've always done it this way for the last 50 years, 100 years, whatever it is, or we want to make a change and do it term limits. So, you know, but it goes to you, the voter, to make a decision. We're just trying to put together the verbiage to make sure it's clear for everyone.
Is there any other discussion on this?
Are we talking specificity? Because I think that's important.
Yes, we are.
There should not be anything that's up in the air.
Agreed.
It should be very clear for anyone and everyone to understand.
So what I understand is, Councilmember Rain, if the council tonight decides we want to put the last 2 terms are going to be retroactive, that's fine. The last 1 term retroactive, that's fine. Going forward, after the election, we'll start the 2 terms, that's fine. So what our task is tonight is to decide how we want to go about doing that. So I'd love to hear how the council would like to do that.
I would personally like to say that it's the 2 terms, 2-year break, and that we count 1 term right now. So we would take the current term and count that as 1, and then the next term would be 2. That way it's fair. That way we don't get someone that is right now, and it wouldn't even work. I mean, like our attorney said, like how could we pass these limits and then have them run for council, and it wouldn't even be into effect until then. So this way would guarantee that we could do both of them.
Okay. How does the rest of the council feel about that?
Just to clarify that, so using Patrick as an example, if he ran and won the next election, that would count as his second of 2, correct?
Yes.
That's correct.
Yeah, I think I like that because I think stretching it out any more than that, in effect, kind of somewhat nullifies term limits.
Correct.
I mean, we just need to say it needs to start now,
Yeah.
and it's decided.
Okay. So I think Mr. Vosberg, would you like to make the motion?
Can I get a
then?
little,
'Cause-
before you do that, I just want to clarify.
Yes, somebody
And more public comments first.
No.
Evening, Council. I have 2 matters. And the first one goes to the previous item on your agenda, and I would ask that the council reconsider and reserve out of that which is going to be offered to the public those materials that were requested by the high school for their AOJ program, the Sam Brown belts, etc. If you'd reconsider that and maybe hold those back, I think it would certainly be appreciated. The second thing is on this current issue. I've been associated both with the city and also with the Unified School District for a number of years, and I have seen on both the school board and the city council members who have been elected over and over to remain on those governing bodies. Consider that if a candidate is elected again and again, that the community benefits by having a person with a long history of the processes and the workings of that organization. That is very valuable. Secondly, if a person is elected time and time again to that position, this is a vote of public confidence, and this is one of the ways that the citizenry can express their approval of the individuals that are doing the job for the city. If you have a turnover in the council on a more frequent interval, there is a period of time that you all know where the newly seated councilman has to learn how to be a councilman. And that takes a period of time. And during that time, the business of the governing board can and does slow down. I think that change for the sake of change is not always a good thing. You may feel that this is not working, but the opposing idea is that if it does work, don't fix it. Thank you.
Is there anybody else in the audience who'd like to comment?
I'm Katie Delano, citizen and director of the Chamber of Commerce, also a history teacher at West Hills College, Coalinga. As a history teacher, this kind of frightens me because I do believe that we have term limits in the process of the election. As you know, Mayor Pro Tem Keogh, in your last election, it was very close, and it actually changed, and every vote counts. This in America is the closest we citizens have to having a true voice in government. And I truly believe that you limiting the process is really a travesty against democracy. I understand that if we didn't want somebody, we have put people in your chairs and we have taken people out of those chairs when we didn't like what they did. And I just really want you to think about the democratic principle here, because I'm like, wow. And the point is that we don't always have to get along. The point is that we should be able to discuss. I think the marijuana issue has been an ultimate, this town has been divided and you guys have worked it through and you've gotten it to a point. We put our trust in you that you are making wise decisions. And if we didn't like your decisions, we would show that at the next election. So I just would really like you to think about the democratic principle, because you are our closest voice. We don't matter so much, Coalinga especially doesn't matter so much as we get to the county, state, and national level. But you are our voice. And I feel that sometimes we don't even have candidates running. And then how do we fill those positions if we don't have candidates running? Would you five have the voice for us again? Where I feel like there's some ramifications that we have to think big. And as you are my voice and I want who I want in the office, I will cast my ballot. But if I don't have a choice, then I may not be as determined to go to the ballot box. And I think that would be against every principle of what we are in the United States of America. Just putting that out there.
So,
Thank you.
So I have a comment. So I agree with that to the point to where I'm going to say that the public will decide that matter, because we're not deciding that up here. We're giving the public to decide, because just like you have an opinion, other people have an opinion too. And what I want to do is I want to put this opinion to the public. And so those same people who will be deciding whether or not we get a stay will be the same people that decide whether or not we have term limits. And I think that is a fair democracy, to be allowed the public to decide that, so that people that sit up here can't use their term in power to stay in power, which is what we've seen happen. 20-year terms at the school board, 20-year terms at the city council, and it has taken very big things for people to come through and say, hey, guess what? We don't want these people here any longer. And when you're here, you build up those connections, you build up those people. We have 300 million people in America. Why should it be down? Why should we narrow this down? But I agree with you. This should be a vote by the public. And so all we're doing is voting to put this onto the ballot, and what language that we should use to do that. And I say that if the public says that there should be term limits, then the public and democracy has spoken. And if they say no, then they've spoken to us and it won't go. But that's where we just want to put it, because I agree with what you're saying, and I agree, and I hear what people are saying, like there has to be some kind of fluid of government. But I also can look at the other side, and when people say, hey, people have used their power to stay in power, and that's what they don't like. And this is comments coming from citizens, and that's the reason that this is up here, is because people have brought this to my attention and said, hey, you need to do this. They brought it to Mr. Keogh's attention, I'm guessing, because that's why he brought it up. So this isn't really our decision. This is just our decision to put it onto the ballot. And so that's my comment.
And also, I want people to also understand, it is very difficult when you've never been in government to run against an incumbent. It's most people don't even bother. They feel very much like, why even try? And when you get that kind of when you get that kind of feeling of who cares, why bother, then suddenly our city politics become more like national politics where I don't really affect the president. You know, my vote doesn't really matter. People start feeling like that here. In fact, people do, because people have come and talked to me for the last 4 years. Like I stated last time, second to the trees, this has been the biggest issue people have come and said to me. They said, would you please have the courage to bring this up before you get out, because no one else has had the courage to do it. And giving it some consideration, I thought, okay, that's what I'll do. And like Mr. Vosberg said, it's not going to be up to us. It's going to be up to ultimately you, the public. So, is there any other comments from either the council or?
Yeah, I do. I have comment. Number one, no single council member has power. Number one. No one. It takes 3 to get anything done. I've been on this council for 20 plus years. I don't have any more power than anybody sitting up here. The police chief has a lot of power. City manager has a lot of power. I do not have that kind of power. Can I influence other people just as much as you guys do? You darn tootin' I can. That's what we're all here for, to benefit the community. If people want to keep someone in office, that's great. Why not, if they're doing a good job? If they're not doing a good job, then sure they should go, and that's why we have the voting process. I don't agree with term limits for a general law city in a small community. If people want to run, I don't see that many people putting their name in there. I have not ever seen that many people put their names. I think in all my years, the most amount of people I ever seen put their name was 6 people, and it was a tight election. It's just nothing more than what those persons have to offer. A lot of people will sit back and complain, but they do not step forward to participate. We all know that. If you're going to put it on the ballot, put it on the ballot. Simple. Do you want term limits? Yes or no? And then you go from there, and then you determine how you want to do it. But get a vote of the people first to see what they want, because it is the people of this community who make that decision. I don't think it should be 5 people sitting up here and say, okay, this is how we're going to control it now. I don't agree with that at all. The people who should control this are the voters of this community.
For myself, I am a strong supporter of newness, freshness, different ways of looking at things. I understand the argument or the position that there are things to be added from those who've served for a long time. I'm not hearing anybody suggest maybe we need to look at different people's leadership and what has come about during that period of time. I think that's important. And ignoring that, I have a problem with. It is too easy, and we've seen it here, where we can get in kind of a rut. And I think if there's a problem with people being uncertain or unsure about running, I think making it a little easier, not necessarily easier to elect people, because we know that there's no way to do that honestly, but I think being more open and welcoming to new people who want to share with our community, I think that's important. And I see that, denying that, I see as a greater problem, a greater risk to the future of this community than sticking with what we've known, what we've had, on and on and on. I'm, like I say, I'm repeating myself, I'm a firm believer in freshness and new ideas. If you think back when Ronald Reagan first ran for the governor of California, I'm sure it was one of his speechwriters that said, guess what? You know, this nation was not built on professional politicians. It was not built on people that were in office and in office and in office. And whether you like Reagan or didn't like Reagan or whatever, you know, I think there's much to be said about freshness. And good grief, if there's ever a town that needs new ideas and fresh ideas, folks, this is it. We need newness. We also need coming together, whether it's new people and veteran people. And just as an aside, that's one of the things I'd like to share about serving with my colleagues here. I feel we get along well. We don't always agree, but by golly, we have no problem talking and sharing and debating things. And it's my privilege to serve with these gentlemen. But that's my position. I like newness, I like freshness, and I believe we need it.
I'd like to piggyback on what Mr. Rain said. The newness and the freshness is essential to growth and opportunity. I've heard so many times when I've asked people, you know, what do you think about this? Oh, the people will never go for it. Interesting. They'll never go for it? Why? Well, because this is the way we've always done things. Interesting. So we're going to keep doing the wrong thing over and over and expect different results? No, not on my watch. I don't need to be here. This is not a career opportunity for me, okay? Like, anyone who wants to sit up here as a lifelong thing, that's an issue with me. I'm directly against that. I don't think this is an issue. This is a place for someone to serve like their whole life and like, hey, this is my city and my stuff. I believe we need new people up here, and I agree directly with Mr. Rain that provides new opportunity. And now, I believe in 8 years, you can have some continuity. And me as a council member, it took me 1 year to learn. One. That's what I learned. I mean, and I'm still learning every day, but it took me 1 year. And I remember exactly when it was. And you know when it was? When I thought to myself, I don't want to do this anymore. That's when I learned. I was like, this is not what I want to do, because it is a thankless job. Now, let me say, good old boy network. How many times in Coalinga do we hear good old boy network over and over and over? And I'm tired of it. I'm done with it. It's coming out. We're going to say, voters, if you think there's a good old boy network, destroy it right now. Let's see it, and we'll see what they vote. I'm betting they're going to vote for term limits, and then people are going to be surprised, and then there's going to be change, and then we're going to move forward and we're going to grow. I don't think that the people that sit up here have any ill will in trying to just sit here and not do anything. I just believe that if we pick other people out and we bring them forward and we make it easier for them, and they don't think that there's a good old boy network, that our opportunity levels will grow and we can grow as a community. So I also say that, you know what, without Mr. Landers and without Mr. Ramsey's wisdom here, we use that wisdom every time. And I'm also honored to serve up here as well with my colleagues. And so I'm just putting that out there. But I do believe that term limits are needed and a must. So.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion for this?
Mayor, members of council, I still have one comment. So this is what we got so far. 2 consecutive terms, a 2-year break. What happens after that? 1 more term, or you start the new cycle over? And that wasn't clear. Start over. Okay. All right, and then I'm assuming you're looking at this November getting on the ballot with the other 2 ballot measures.
I would be in favor of starting over a new cycle.
Okay.
I would too.
Okay, so just whoever makes the motion, make that clear this election, and that's how it will work.
Okay, just one other thing, just for the public's information. What is it going to cost money to put this additional money to put this on the ballot? Like what? How much are we talking about?
So it was estimated to be between 11 and 15,000.
Whoa.
I thought that was asked last week.
It was.
Okay, I missed that. So we can't afford fireworks, but we can afford $15,000 to put something on the ballot. Okay, thank you.
So do I have a motion?
I have a motion, but I don't know exactly how to word it. Can you give me some wording, Mr.
Yes.
Attorney?
So
I'm sorry, but
we'll type it up exactly right, but the motion would be to have two consecutive 4-year term. The term limits are 2 consecutive 4-year terms, and then a 2-year break, minimum of a 2-year break. After that, you can run again for 2 more 4-year terms, and you can do that forever as long as you always have at least a 2-year break between the 2 terms. And we'll write it up, make sure the language is right, and it's also going to be this November 8th, and we'll make sure the language is correct. If we need to bring something back formally, I believe on the first August meeting, we're bringing back all the ballot measures, the formal language, so we may actually come back with the precise language. But as long as you say that, we will get it right.
I second that.
I'd say that's legit.
Councilmember Vosberg,
Aye.
Councilmember Rain,
Aye.
Councilmember Lander,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Keough.
Aye.